Shedeur taking fewer reps, do you think that's a bad sign?
No, not at all. It's too early for all of that. He just arrived. He's a rookie. And by the way, while you're looking at him, you also want to see what Dylan Gabriel will bring to the table, along with others. Kenny Pickett is on this squad. He's relatively young, even though I don't think that he's the face of the franchise for the future, okay? Of course, Joe Flacco is an experienced veteran. You got him there as a security blanket. You should have had him there last year, okay? But when I look at Shedeur Sanders, I mean, when you consider what he did, his career completion percentage is the best in the FBS, more than 71% for his career. He completed 74% of his passes last year, despite being sacked about 42 times, okay, 90 plus times over the 2 years that he was at Colorado. The brother can play, but what you drafted in the fifth round, 144th overall, we all know how bogus that was. We know that there's more to it than just his football skill. But him being there, you want to test a lot of things about Shedeur Sanders. And most of it, of course, his skill set is one thing because you want to make sure he can play on this level. But his temperament, his willingness to him, not ability, because we know he has the ability, but his willingness to handle adversity. His willingness, you want to see if you're the Browns, how he's going to react to not being with the first team, all right, not being QB1 and taking a step back. You want to see how he's going to react while they're taking a look at Dylan Gabriel. You want to see what his temperament is like and what have you because of all the things that have been said about him. So I don't have a problem with it at all. I thought he gave perfect answers yesterday. But more importantly, Cleveland testing him this way doesn't bother me either because what you're trying to do is cement what you believe you already know about his character, not just his play. And I think that it's good for a young person in his position to be put through those tests because ultimately you're going to be tested. So why not start from scratch and try to test him now?
While the entire NFL world was sleeping on Shedeur Sanders, watching him fall to the 144th pick like he was damaged goods, something absolutely wild was happening behind closed doors in Cleveland. Stephen A. Smith just dropped a bombshell that has Browns fans losing their minds. He's calling for the organization to cut Dylan Gabriel, the third-round pick they supposedly valued higher, and hand the keys to the fifth-round reject instead. But here's the kicker, the stats from Minicamp don't just support Stephen A.'s shocking take. They make it look like the most obvious decision in football history. What did Shedeur do that has even the harshest critics admitting they got it completely wrong? The Cleveland Browns quarterback room is absolute chaos right now. And what's happening with Shedeur Sanders is making front offices across the league question everything they thought they knew about evaluating talent. We're talking about a guy who was projected to be the second quarterback taken in the entire draft. Not the fifth, not the third, but the second overall quarterback off the board. Instead, he plummeted all the way to pick 144, and now he's making everyone who passed on him look foolish. Stephen A. Smith didn't mince words when he broke down the situation. He looked at what Sanders has been doing in Cleveland and basically said what we're all thinking. This kid is sharper than Dylan Gabriel, more polished than anyone expected, and the Browns need to stop playing games. When I look at Shedeur Sanders, Stephen A. said, I mean, when you consider what he did, his career completion percentage is the best in the FBS, 71%, more than 71% for his career. He completed 74% of his passes last year despite being sacked, about 42 times. Let's talk about those numbers for a second because they're absolutely insane. Sanders got destroyed behind Colorado's offensive line. We're talking about 90-plus sacks over just 2 years at Colorado. 90-plus times this kid got planted into the turf, and he still maintained a 74% completion percentage in his final season. That's not luck, that's not system. That's pure, undeniable talent and composure under pressure. But here's where it gets really interesting. The Browns coaching staff, led by Kevin Stefanski, initially gave Dylan Gabriel first-team reps during minicamp while Sanders was working with the backups. On paper, that makes sense. Gabriel was the third-round pick, Sanders was the fifth. But the performance gap between these two has been so dramatic that even Stephen A. is calling for a complete.
The reality is that his skill set, again, I'm going to remind everybody, he was projected to be the second quarterback taken in the draft. That's the bottom line. And to go from that to if he had dropped to late in the first round because another quarterback was picked ahead of him or, a second round pick, that would be different. But when you drop all the way to the fifth round, The 144th pick overall, doggy. That's not about football. That's about something else. When you got a guy with his talent that showed what he could do, particularly with his poise under pressure and what have you, and being sacked so many times and all, the brother can play.
Flip of the depth chart. Sanders' minicamp performance was nothing short of phenomenal. We're talking about a 77.4% completion rate. That's 41 completions on 53 attempts with 9 touchdowns and only 1 interception. Let me say that again for the people in the back. 9 touchdowns, 1 interception. This is a rookie working with backup players, getting limited opportunities, and he's putting up numbers that would make Pro Bowl quarterbacks jealous. The eye test backs up the numbers too. Coaches and analysts who watched Sanders' work described his throws as having great accuracy and touch, with the ability to deliver the ball on time consistently. There was one play in particular that had everyone talking, a difficult deep corner route to tight end Trey McKitty that Sanders executed so perfectly it looked easy. That's the kind of throw that separates franchise quarterbacks from career backups. Meanwhile, Dylan Gabriel, despite getting those coveted first-team reps, had what observers called a rough start to minicamp. Sure, he showed improvement by the end, but we're talking about a third-round pick who was supposed to be more NFL-ready than Sanders. The fact that he's being outplayed by a fifth-rounder who's getting fewer opportunities should be sending shockwaves through the Browns organization. Stephen A. Smith sees what's happening here, and he's not afraid to call it like it is. He pointed out something crucial that a lot of people are missing. This isn't just about football skills. The Browns are testing Sanders' character, his resilience, his ability to handle adversity. They want to see how he reacts to not being the guy, to taking a backseat to Gabriel despite clearly outperforming him. And you know what? Sanders is passing that test with flying colors. His response to the situation has been absolutely perfect. He said, "You can view things as you're not getting reps in a negative way, or you could view it as okay. When is my time to get out there? There's no excuses because when you get out there, nobody cares how many reps you got. When you get in the game, nobody cares if you took a snap before. They care about production." That's championship-level mentality right there. This kid understands that talent will rise to the top, and he's not worried about politics or draft position. He's focused on being ready when his number gets called. The Browns are in an unprecedented situation with 4 quarterbacks on the roster: Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Sanders, and Gabriel. Most teams carry 3 max, but Cleveland is reportedly prepared to keep all 4 for much or all of the 2025 season. That's unheard of in the NFL, and it's creating some fascinating dynamics. Here's what Stephen A. understands that others might be missing. Sanders is being evaluated on multiple levels. The Browns know they got a steal in the 5th round, but they want to make sure he can handle the mental and emotional aspects of being an NFL quarterback. They're watching his body language, his work ethic, how he interacts with teammates when he's not getting the spotlight, and from all accounts, Sanders is crushing that evaluation too. He's been staying after practice to work on throws and build chemistry with receivers. Coaches are praising his work ethic, with Kevin Stefanski calling him a very, very hard worker and expressing enjoyment in watching him progress with every single meeting, with every single rep. The comparison to Tom Brady is impossible to ignore here. Brady was also a late-round pick who had to maximize every opportunity, who had to prove he belonged despite the draft position. Louis Riddick made this exact point when discussing Sanders, noting that, as a pure quarterback of everyone who they have on their roster right now, I do believe that Shedeur is the best player. Think about that statement for a moment. A respected NFL analyst is saying that the 5th-round rookie is already the best quarterback on a roster that includes former first-rounder Kenny Pickett and Super Bowl champion Joe Flacco. That's not just praise. That's a complete indictment of how badly the draft evaluation process failed. The numbers support this take completely. Sanders' 77.4% completion rate in minicamp wasn't just good, it was historically impressive for a rookie working with limited reps. Compare that to Gabriel, who despite getting first-team opportunities, couldn't establish himself as clearly superior to the 5th-rounder working with the scrubs. Stephen A. Smith's call to cut Gabriel start Sanders might sound extreme, but it's actually grounded in performance-based logic. If you're building for the future, why would you invest development time in the inferior player just because of draft position? The Browns already admitted they made a mistake by letting Sanders fall to the 5th round when they could have taken him earlier. The historical context makes this even more remarkable. Since 1985, only Dak Prescott has won a starting job as a rookie drafted in the 4th round or later. But Prescott's situation was different. He was a 4th rounder, not a 5th, and he didn't have the college production that Sanders brought to the table. Sanders' college career numbers are absolutely elite. 14,353 passing yards, 134 touchdowns, and a completion percentage over 70% for his entire career. He led Colorado to 9 wins in his final season and earned Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year honors. This isn't some project player who needs years of development. This is a guy who was producing at an elite level against top competition. The draft slide was never about talent. As Stephen A. pointed out, when you drop all the way to the 5th round, the 144th pick overall, that's not about football. That's about something else. The pre-draft concerns about Sanders' coachability and demeanor are looking more and more like character assassination when you see how he's handling this situation in Cleveland. NFL insider Adam Schefter has drawn comparisons between Sanders and Russell Wilson, who dominated training camp as a rookie and forced Seattle's hand. Schefter believes Sanders could earn a starting role at some point during the regular season, and if his minicamp performance is any indication, that timeline might be accelerated. The Browns' coaching staff is in a fascinating position. They have a brutal 6-game opening stretch that might favor starting a veteran like Flacco or Pickett, but they also have a rookie who's clearly outperforming expectations and might be too good to keep on the bench for long. Kevin Stefanski has urged media not to read too much into OTA performances, but he also knows that his decisions will be scrutinized heavily once training camp starts. The move from non-contact drills to full speed, padded practices will be the real test for Sanders, but everything we've seen suggests he'll rise to that challenge too. Here's what makes Stephen A.'s take so compelling. He's not just looking at raw talent, he's considering the entire organizational picture. The Browns have positioned themselves perfectly for the future with multiple first-round picks in 2026, including Jacksonville's pick that could be very high. They can afford to take chances on their rookies because they have safety nets in place. But what if they don't need those safety nets? What if the 5th-round steal turns out to be the franchise quarterback they've been searching for since 1999? The Browns have cycled through 38 different starting quarterbacks since returning to the NFL. Maybe it's time to stop overthinking and go with the guy who's actually performing. The eye test, the numbers, the character evaluation, everything points to Sanders being special. His ability to process information quickly, make correct reads under pressure, and deliver accurate passes consistently is exactly what you want in a franchise quarterback. The fact that he's doing it while getting limited first-team reps makes it even more impressive. Dylan Gabriel isn't a bad player, but he's not Shedeur Sanders. The Browns need to make a decision about their future, and that decision should be based on performance, not draft position. Stephen A. Smith sees what many others are afraid to admit. Sometimes the best player is hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone to have the courage to give him a real chance. The Browns have lightning in a bottle with Sanders, and they need to stop treating him like a 5th-round afterthought. The minicamp numbers don't lie, the character evaluation is overwhelmingly positive, and the potential is through the roof. It's time to embrace what they have instead of clinging to what they thought they wanted. This quarterback competition is far from over, but the early returns suggest that the Browns might have found their answer in the most unlikely place. Sometimes the best stories come from the biggest surprises, and Shedeur Sanders is writing one hell of a comeback story in Cleveland. What do you think? Is Stephen A. right about cutting Gabriel and rolling with Sanders? Are the Browns crazy for not giving their most productive quarterback more first-team reps? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more breaking NFL analysis that cuts through the noise and tells you what's really happening.